Have you ever felt like you're just spinning your wheels, stuck in some kind of loop that you just can't seem to break out of? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible scripts that can run our lives, these self-defeating patterns. We're going to look at where they come from and, more importantly, how you can start to rewrite them.
This quote from Mandy Hale, man, it really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? That feeling, that quiet ache of just not feeling right in your own life. That's the pain we're talking about today. It's not just about being unhappy. It's that feeling deep down that you know you're meant for something else.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what it really means to be stuck. Then, we're going to go back in time a little to uncover a pretty surprising cause, childhood survival strategies that have kind of overstayed their welcome. Then we'll get into the real meat of it, 5 common patterns you might just recognize. And we'll wrap up with the very first and most powerful step you can take. All right, let's dive right in with the problem itself. Why on earth do we stay in situations that we know are making us miserable? It feels kind of crazy sometimes, but the answer is actually surprisingly logical when you break it down. Just think about that for a second. That feeling when you're pushing and pushing and pushing, doubling down on some approach to your life or your job or a relationship, but you're just not getting anywhere. It's so frustrating, right? Well, that feeling is a huge part of being stuck. So where does this stuck feeling really come from? This is where it gets super interesting, because it takes us all the way back to when we were kids. According to psychologist Dr. Lasater, these patterns we have, they're not character flaws. They're actually just outdated survival tools. To put it really simply, a self-defeating pattern is just a survival skill that worked brilliantly for us as children, but now it's causing all sorts of problems in our adult lives. It's kind of like you learned to use a hammer as a kid and it was the best tool ever. But now you're an adult trying to fix a delicate watch with it. It's just not the right tool for the job anymore. Here's a perfect example. Imagine a kid in a really chaotic home. They learn that if they take care of everyone, it keeps the peace. I mean, that's a genius survival skill for a child. But fast forward to adulthood, and that same impulse to take care of everyone turns into co-dependency, where your own needs always get pushed to the back of the line. The strategy is the same, but the world has changed, and now it's actually hurting you. And here's the real trap. When our old strategy stops working, what do you think we do? Our first instinct isn't to try something new. Oh no, it's to double down, to try harder, using the only tool we know. It's like we're pushing the gas pedal on a car that's stuck in the mud. We just dig ourselves in deeper and deeper. And that's how these patterns get so strong. So what do these patterns actually look like day to day? Let's walk through 5 of the most common ones. And as I go through them, just, see if any of them sound a little familiar. No judgment, just curiosity. First up is a big one that I think a lot of us are going to recognize: compulsive achievement. This is for anybody who's ever felt like your worth as a person is completely tied to what you get done. The main thing here is overworking, right? Your identity is your job, your success. You're always obsessed with the next goal, and it's all powered by that little lie we tell ourselves: when I just get this next thing done, then I'll finally be happy. But the real cost is what you lose along the way, like the ability to just relax, to be present, or to really connect with people. Take a guy like Justin. He felt humiliated in school, and that lit a fire under him to succeed no matter what. And it worked. He became a top salesman. But that same relentless drive was costing him everything else. His health was shot, his marriage was falling apart. And here's that trap again. The more things unraveled, the harder he worked, chasing the one thing he thought could fix it all. Okay, our next pattern kind of shifts from the office to our personal lives. It's called codependency. This is all about pouring every ounce of yourself into a relationship that is, well, pretty much a one-way street. You know this pattern. You give and you give and you give, always hoping to fix the relationship. It's driven by this really heartbreaking belief that if you can just love someone enough, if you just care enough, they'll have to love you back. But in that process, you completely lose sight of what you need. Ashley's story is such a powerful example of this. She was with a guy who was just distant, critical, and her response was to try harder. She'd be more considerate, more attentive, just hoping to inspire him to change. But she was emotionally starving, living for these tiny little crumbs of affection, while her own deep needs were just completely ignored. All right, pattern number 3 is for the fighter, the champion of justice. It's called generalized rebellion. It starts out as this really noble desire for fairness when you're a kid, but in adulthood, it can turn into this draining, endless war against things you just can't control. This person is always trying to fix things that are not their job to fix. They're fueled by this constant outrage over how other people are behaving, and they're running on this mistaken belief that their good intentions are powerful enough to solve any problem. The skill they're really missing is a crucial one: knowing when to just let go. Joseph's story really shows you where this comes from. As a kid, he tried so hard to stop his parents from fighting. So what happens when he's an adult? He finds himself in this pointless struggle to change the toxic office politics at his job, fighting battles that aren't his and just burning himself out. It was the exact same feeling of powerlessness from his childhood, just playing out on a different stage. So we went from the fighter to the complete other end of the spectrum with pattern number 4, casualty syndrome. This one is born from a childhood where being safe meant being invisible, keeping your head down. But that survival tactic, when you carry it into adulthood, can leave you feeling like a passenger in your own life. Someone stuck in this pattern often feels like life is something that happens to them, not something they create. They might find themselves waiting for someone to come rescue them, and their minds can get really preoccupied with all the ways they've been wronged. There's often this deep, painful belief that if they just act good and do the right thing, then the world should treat them well in return. Okay, our final pattern might seem like the opposite of that overachiever we talked about, but the roots are surprisingly similar. It's called under-responsibility. This often comes from a childhood where figuring out how to be charming was a much better survival strategy than learning how to be capable.
The key behavior here is just not following through. These folks can be incredibly charismatic and likable, but they really struggle with commitment and are always on the lookout for an easier path. The core missing skill is that foundational ability to just take full, honest responsibility for yourself.
So why does any of this matter? What's the big deal? Because these aren't just little personality quirks. They have real, painful costs. We're talking about total burnout, relationships falling apart, that constant buzz of anxiety and depression, and just a fundamental neglect of our own health and well-being. This is the heavy price we pay for staying stuck. Look, breaking these patterns is not about beating yourself up. It's about having some compassion for that kid who had to create them just to get by. The first step isn't some giant leap. It's just awareness. It's catching yourself in the act. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you can see the pattern, what's just one small thing you can do today to step off that old tired path and onto a new one? Even the smallest step is a huge victory. Thanks for joining me.